will reopen on 24th June for students taking major exams. Only 2 new COVID-19 cases the last 24 hours. You're watching News on 2 with me, Renee Fong. Good evening. Schools will reopen on 24th June for students sitting for major public examinations more than 3 months after classes were called off under the Movement Control Order MCO. Education Minister Dr. Mohamad Mat Jidin said this will involve students sitting for SPM, SVM, STPM and STAM as well as equivalent international examinations. The decision was made after advice from the Health Ministry and the National Security Council NSC.
Jangan bimbang. Kami yakin dengan kerjasama guru ibu bapa, guru-guru dan anak-anak dalam mematuhi garis panduan yang telah dikeluarkan, anak-anak kita dapat hadir ke sekolah dan mengikuti pembelajaran dalam keadaan yang selamat. Dalam hal ini, kami amat berharap agar ibu bapa atau penjaga dapat memastikan bahawa anak-anak yang sihat sahaja dihantar ke sekolah.
Dr. Mohamad said the school reopening management guidelines issued by the Education Ministry has been approved by the Health Ministry. The guidelines had been distributed to schools on 4th June. He said the guidelines stipulated that teachers are to carry out body temperature checks when students enter school compounds. The checks also include individuals dealing with the respective schools. In order to maintain social distancing between students, tables in the classrooms must be arranged with at least 1 meter gap, while the number of students must not exceed 20 in one class. However, he said sports activities and school assemblies would not be allowed yet. Malaysia today records the lowest number of daily COVID-19 new cases, with only 2 cases reported the last 24 hours, bringing the accumulated tally of infections in the country to 8,336. Health Director General Datuk Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah said of the 2 new COVID-19 positive cases reported today, one is an import case and the other local, involving a foreign national. The new cases raised the total number of active cases in the country to 1,206, while there was only 1 death recorded today.
Duka cita dimaklumkan bahawa terdapat 1 pertambahan kes kematian berkaitan dengan COVID-19. Justru jumlah kumulatif kes kematian COVID-19 di Malaysia adalah sebanyak 118 kes, iaitu bersamaan dengan 1.42% daripada jumlah keseluruhan kes. Kes kematian ke-118 iaitu kes ke-824 merupakan lelaki warga negara Malaysia berumur 61 tahun dan mempunyai latar belakang penyakit kencing manis dan penyakit buah pinggang. Beliau mempunyai sejarah menghadiri perhimpunan di Sri Petaling. Beliau telah dirawat di Hospital Sungai Buloh pada 15 Mac 2020 dan disahkan meninggal dunia pada 10 Jun 2020 jam 7 pagi.
Datuk Dr. Nur Hisham said 39 more patients have recovered and were discharged today, raising the number of recovered cases to 7,014. He added that there were 5 patients still being treated at intensive care units, with none of them in need of a ventilator. As the Recovery Movement Control Order RMCO implementation commences today, the number of traffic on highways and major roads is expected to rise drastically, especially from 12th to 14th June. Senior Minister Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob said this as Malaysians are expected to travel back to their hometowns as the interstate travel has finally been lifted. That the police will be stationed at the rest and recreation R&R area to make sure that the public adhere to the SOPs. In the same development, Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri said Malaysian Armed Forces ATM would still remain part of the special task force that oversees SOP compliance, along with the police, RELA, Civil Defence Force and other enforcement agencies.
PDRM tidak lagi memfokuskan kepada sekatan jalan raya, tapi memfokuskan kepada pematuhan SOP. Sama ada di premis-premis perniagaan, di tempat-tempat awam, pasar malam dan sebagainya. Jadi, pematuhan untuk kawalan ataupun task force operasi pematuhan ini akan meneruskan tanggungjawab mereka, ya, dan ATM akan terus bersama dengan PDRM.
In a press briefing today, Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri also reported that the authorities have remanded 25 people and issued 57 compound to CMCO SOP violators yesterday. The senior minister also reminded all Malaysians to travel safely as well as practice self-discipline and observe social distancing while being in public spaces. On another note, Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri said Malaysians who are still undergoing mandatory quarantine at government-gazetted facilities will continue the process at home. The senior minister said beginning today, Malaysians who return from overseas will undergo COVID-19 screening at the airport, and those who tested positive must observe the 14-day quarantine at their homes. Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri explained that the returnees would be sent to quarantine centres while waiting for the test results. He also reminded Malaysians returnees that they must download the MySejahtera application for monitoring purposes before they were allowed to go home and be quarantined.
Mana-mana individu yang ingkar proses kuarantin wajib dan SOP yang ditetapkan akan juga dikenakan kompaun sebanyak RM1,000 ataupun dihadapkan ke mahkamah.
Muslims in Perak will be allowed to perform Friday prayers and congregational prayers beginning this Friday under strict control. According to the Perak Islamic Religion and Malay Customs Council Chief Executive Officer Shahrul Azam Shahri, the Sultan of Perak, Sultan Nazrin Muizzuddin Shah, has given the decree to allow the matter in view of the State Fatwa Committee. In a statement today, Shahrul said all mosques and certain surau in the state are allowed to resume prayers provided they follow the standard operating procedures SOPs set by the Health Ministry and National Security Council NSC. While the number of people in the congregation should not be more than 40 people at any one time, excluding mosque and Qaryah committee members. He said only Malaysians are allowed to perform congregational prayers in the mosques and surau in the state. He added that Perak Religious Islamic Department would issue the guidelines on Friday and congregational prayers to all mosques and surau committee members, in which must be adhered to by all congregants. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong Al-Sultan Abdullah Riayatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah today granted an audience to Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin for a pre-cabinet meeting at Istana Negara. Comptroller of the Royal Household of Istana Negara, Datuk Ahmad Fadil Shamsuddin, said the face-to-face session, which lasted for an hour and 15 minutes from 8:30 a.m, was held following the implementation of the Recovery Movement Control Order RMCO, effective today. Datuk Ahmad Fadil in a statement said it was the second face-to-face meeting and the longest held so far, with the first on 18th March at Istana Melawati in Putrajaya. On 15th April, the meeting was held via video conference. This was when the country was under the third phase of the MCO, and Al-Sultan Abdullah, as well as the Raja Pemaisuri Agong Tunku Hajah Azizah Aminah Maimunah Iskandaria and the royal family, advised to observe self-quarantine for 14 days after some palace staff tested positive for COVID-19. He said the subsequent sessions were also conducted through video conferencing following enforcement of the Conditional Movement Control Order, with the last session through video conference held last week on 4th June. A 47-year-old jobless man was charged at the Kuala Lumpur Sessions Court with 2 counts of insulting Islam on his Facebook account today. Tham Wai Yuan, however, pleaded not guilty when the charges were read to him before Judge M.M. Edwin Paramjoti. According to the charge sheet, Tam had uploaded postings that insulted Islam on his personal Facebook account under the name Tam Sarak. and that his actions triggered dissatisfaction among Muslims and non-Muslims in the country. He was also charged with uploading offensive remarks via his same Facebook account with an intent to hurt others. Tam was accused to have committed all of the offences at 2:30 p.m. on 4th April. The offences falls under Section 298A, subsection 1, subsection A of the Penal Code and Section 233, subsection 1, subsection A of the Communications and Multimedia Act 1998, respectively. Deputy Public Prosecutor Anwar Atika Abdul Hadi asked the court to set 10,000 ringgit bail for both offences. However, the accused, who was unrepresented, pleaded for minimum bail. The court set 4,000 ringgit bail for both offences and fixed 23rd July for mention. You're back with me, Renee Fong. National car manufacturer Perodua has announced that it will reduce its model prices by between 3 to 6% via wash rebates starting today until 14th June. This is well in advance of the government's plan to implement a 100% sales tax exemption on locally assembled models and 50% on fully imported models from 15th June until the end of the year. Its President and Chief Executive Officer Datuk Zainal Abidin Ahmad said after 14th June, the new prices will remain throughout the tax reduction period as announced by Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin. He explained that the move to fully exempt locally assembled cars from sales tax is a confidence boost for the automotive industry, including buyers and the entire ecosystem of manufacturers, suppliers and dealers. He said Perodua is also confident that the tax exemption along with low financing rates could spur new car sales. Datuk Zainal Abidin also said that Perodua has managed to deliver 52,920 vehicles in the first 5 months of 2020, giving it a 41% market share against an estimated year-to-date total industry volume of 129,401 units. The government is seeking to revive the country's tourism industry despite the cancellation of the Visit Malaysia 2020 VM 2020 campaign due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Hence, Tourism, Arts and Culture Minister Datuk Sri Nancy Shukri said efforts to promote the country as a safe tourism destination will continue. Sri Nancy said the ministry will be pursuing a tourism and cultural recovery plan to reignite the domestic tourism industry, which was affected by the Movement Control Order MCO and Conditional Movement Control Order CMCO. Among the strategies that will be prioritized in the plan are the use of digital platforms to regain the community's confidence, faith and trust to travel once more, while showing that Malaysia is indeed a safe destination that prioritizes cleanliness, health and safety. She also revealed that survey conducted by Tourism Malaysia on Malaysians' perception towards domestic tourism post-MCO showed 50.9% or 13,797 respondents believed domestic tourism activities are much safer now.
84.2% mempercayai COVID-19 mempengaruhi sikap mereka untuk mengembara dan 71.3% memilih Malaysia sebagai destinasi pelancongan berbanding ke luar negara. Malah dalam tinjauan itu juga mendapati bahawa 30.7% individu dalam kajian ingin bercuti antara 6 bulan sehingga setahun, diikuti 22.8% iaitu 2 hingga 6 bulan dan 22.6% kurang dari 2 minggu. Everybody is excited to go on to have a holiday.
She said this in a media conference which was streamed live via the ministry's Facebook page. Datuk Sri Nancy added the ministry will also be implementing a few initiatives in efforts to alleviate the burden on the tourism industry in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic. Cancun, one of Mexico's most popular beaches, resumes tourism after the restrictions imposed due to the COVID-19 pandemic were relaxed, but plenty of businesses remain closed.
Desafortunadamente con esta situación de la pandemia pues sí nos pegó mucho porque tuvimos que cerrar. Esperamos en la reapertura pues empezar a recibir los huéspedes. Tenemos pensado pues abrir con un 30% y pues esperamos muy pronto abrir las puertas.
This might mean that vacationists from the US could begin flying into Mexico as early as July. Fox Business pointed out that major airlines are slowly beginning to resume international routes, with Southwest and American Airlines now flying again into major Mexican tourism spots like Cancun and Los Cabos, and Delta Airlines planning to restart select service options from Atlanta into Cancun and Mexico City. The outlet also highlighted that when the time comes, inbound travelers will be subjected to health screenings, including temperature checks, upon their arrival in Mexico, and those exhibiting any symptoms will require additional screenings and could be placed under quarantine. And that concludes this evening's News on 2. In our top story, schools to reopen on 24th June for students taking major exams. Join us again at 12:30 tomorrow afternoon for more updates on the latest happenings around the world. I'm Renee Fong. Thanks for watching and have a pleasant evening.